Train your mind to be calm in every situation. Ladies and gentlemen, we live in a world that celebrates urgency, hustle, noise, constant stimulation. And somewhere in the middle of all that chaos, we've developed this idea that if we're not reacting fast enough, we're falling behind. But let me ask you this. When was the last time reacting quickly actually made the situation better? More often than not, our first reaction is based on fear, not thought, on emotion, not intention. And here's the problem. If we don't train our minds to be calm, truly calm, we become prisoners of the moment instead of masters of our response. A lot of people think calm is something you're either born with or you're not, that it's a personality trait. You hear things like, oh, she's just naturally calm, or he's got nerves of steel. But that idea is not only misleading, it's limiting. Calm isn't a personality trait, it's a skill. And like any skill, it can be learned, practiced, and strengthened over time. Think about it. No one is born knowing how to lead or how to speak in public or how to play the piano. We develop those skills through repetition, reflection, and feedback. The same applies to calmness. It's a mental muscle. And just like physical muscles, if you don't train it, it doesn't grow. The challenge is that we usually only notice our need for calm when we're already in the middle of the storm. A hard conversation, a sudden crisis, a wave of anxiety. We look for calm like it's a button we can push. But by then, it's too late to build it. Calm isn't something you access in an emergency. It's something you prepare for long before the emergency arrives. Think of elite athletes or military professionals. Their ability to remain composed under pressure isn't magic, it's training. Repeated intentional exposure to difficulty and pressure. And through that, they build the discipline to stay focused, to stay present, even when everything around them is going sideways. You don't have to be a Navy SEAL or a world-class athlete to do this. Training for calm can start in everyday moments. When your coffee spills first thing in the morning, when someone cuts you off in traffic, when a coworker interrupts you in a meeting, those are opportunities to practice, not react, not snap, but pause, breathe, respond. And the truth is, it's not about being emotionless. Calm doesn't mean you don't feel stress or fear or anger. It means you don't let those emotions drive the car. It means you create space between what's happening and how you respond to it. That space, that gap, is where calm lives. And every time you choose to expand that gap, even by a second, you're strengthening the skill. This doesn't happen overnight. Like any meaningful change, it requires intention, it requires consistency. You might fail, you might react in ways you're not proud of. That's okay. The point isn't perfection, the point is progress. That's the kind of strength the world needs, not reactive energy, but grounded presence. So the next time you catch yourself thinking, I'm just not a calm person, stop, reframe it. Say instead, I'm training to be calm. We like to tell ourselves that when the pressure is on, we'll rise to the occasion, that when it really matters, we'll figure it out. And sure, once in a while, adrenaline kicks in and we get lucky. But more often than not, especially in high-stakes situations, we don't rise to the challenge. We fall to the level of our training. I remember asking a Navy SEAL about this very thing. I was curious how they stay so composed when the chaos around them is overwhelming. His answer was simple, and it's stayed with me ever since. He said, we fall to the level of our training, not the height of our expectations. That changes everything, because what he was really saying is under stress, we don't perform based on hope. We perform based on habit, on the repetition we've done behind the scenes, on the systems we've built when the pressure was low. It's not that SEALs are fearless. It's that they've trained themselves to respond when fear shows up. They've rehearsed how to breathe, how to think, how to stay present, even when everything in their body is screaming at them to panic. Now, you may not be in a battlefield, but the principle is exactly the same in daily life. Think about it. When you get bad news, do you immediately spiral into stress? Or do you have a mental framework to slow down, process, and respond? When a deadline moves up or a plan falls apart, do you get caught up in frustration or do you lean on systems you've already practiced? The truth is, we all face pressure. It just looks different for each of us. It could be a difficult conversation, a business decision, a health scare, a moment of deep uncertainty. And in those moments, we don't suddenly become the best version of ourselves. We become the version we've trained. So the question becomes, what are we training for? Most of us don't realize we're always training. Every time we react out of anger or blame someone else, we're reinforcing those habits. Every time we numb out with distractions instead of facing discomfort, we're strengthening that pattern. But we can flip that. We can train for presence instead of panic. We can train for clarity instead of chaos. We just have to do it before we need it. That means creating small intentional moments throughout your day to practice the things you want to embody under pressure. It can be as simple as setting aside 2 minutes to pause before responding to an upsetting email, or rehearsing how you'll approach a tough conversation, or creating a morning routine that grounds you before the world starts making demands. These aren't just productivity hacks, they're mental reps. And like any form of training, the more consistently you do it, the stronger you get. No, don't rely on the idea that you'll somehow rise when it matters most. That's a comforting story, but it's not how human behavior works. What's far more powerful is this: knowing that every moment of discipline, every uncomfortable pause, every time you choose awareness over reactivity, you're preparing yourself. You're building a foundation that will hold you steady when life throws you off balance. That's not just training for calm. That's training for leadership, for resilience, for real impact. Because when the moment comes, and it will, you don't want to hope you'll be ready. You want to know you've trained for it. We tend to think that calmness comes from one big realization. Like one day we'll read the right book, listen to the right podcast, or have one life-changing meditation session, and suddenly we'll be calm under pressure for the rest of our lives. But it doesn't work like that. Real calm, the kind that lasts, isn't built through 1,000 small choices we make every day. The truth is, the mind doesn't change all at once. It changes gradually over time through repetition. Just like we don't get physically fit from one workout, we don't become mentally calm from one moment of mindfulness. It's the consistent, often boring, daily practice that transforms us. It starts with the tiniest decisions, the ones that seem so small, they're easy to overlook. Like when you're stuck in traffic and someone cuts you off. That moment right there, that's practice. You could honk, curse, stew in frustration, or you could take a breath. You could choose not to let one moment of someone else's impatience control your entire day. That's not weakness. That's strength in disguise. Or think about those everyday conversations that go sideways. Someone interrupts you, a colleague disagrees. Your instinct is to defend, to raise your voice, to push back. But what if instead you paused? What if you leaned into curiosity instead of control? What if you practiced calm, not because the situation demands it, but because you do? These moments may seem small, but they add up, they compound. And over time, they change your default setting. Instead of living in a constant state of reaction, you begin to create space. And in that space, you gain the power to choose. That's the magic of calm. It gives you the ability to choose your response instead of being a slave to your impulses. The brain learns through repetition. So give it repetition that aligns with the person you want to be. And it all started with small, simple choices. So don't wait for a dramatic breakthrough. Don't chase the perfect moment to become calm. Just start practicing now in the small spaces of your day, because that's where the real work happens. That's where calm is built. We often think of emotions as personal, internal experiences, something we feel, process and deal with on our own. But emotions don't stay contained. They ripple, they spread, they impact the people around us more than we realize. And when it comes to calmness, this is especially true. Calm is contagious. You've probably experienced it before. You walk into a room and instantly feel the tension. No one says anything, but you feel it. Something is off. Someone is upset. Maybe people are anxious, rushing, speaking too fast. And without even knowing it, your heart rate goes up. Your body mirrors the energy of the room. That's emotional contagion in action. Our nervous systems are wired to pick up on the signals of those around us. It's a survival mechanism that dates back thousands of years. We're designed to tune into the tribe, to read the room, to sense danger, to connect. And that same wiring that makes us absorb calm. When one person in a group remains calm under pressure, it creates a kind of emotional anchor. It tells everyone else, we're okay. We don't need to panic. That's powerful. In families, it's the parent who doesn't raise their voice when the kids are acting out. In teams, it's the leader who listens before reacting. In crisis, it's the voice that stays steady when others are spiraling. That's the kind of presence that grounds people. It doesn't just feel good, it creates safety. And here's the beautiful thing. You don't need a title to do this. You don't have to be in charge to lead with calm. You don't have to be the loudest in the room to have the most impact. Calm speaks quietly, but it speaks powerfully. When you train yourself to remain calm, not emotionless, not detached, but truly centered, you create space for others to do the same. You give permission through your presence for others to slow down too. You create an energy where people can think more clearly, communicate more honestly, and work more effectively. That's especially important in moments of uncertainty. When people are unsure, they look around and take cues from others. If all they see is stress, that stress spreads. But if they see calm, if they see composure, that becomes the emotional baseline. This is why leaders of all kinds must take responsibility for the energy they bring into a room. Because your presence has more influence than your words. People won't always remember what you said, but they'll remember how they felt around you. Calm leaves a mark. It's quiet leadership. It's steady influence. But none of that happens by accident. To bring calm to others, you first have to cultivate it within yourself. You can't offer what you haven't practiced. And that means doing the inner work, learning how to regulate your own emotions, how to pause before reacting, how to stay present, even when things feel like they're spinning. It's not easy, but it's worth it. Because when you learn how to be that steady hand in the storm, you make things better, not just for you, but for everyone around you. And it doesn't take perfection, it just takes intention. A calm mind creates a calm presence creates a calm environment, and a calm environment allows everyone to rise. So the next time you walk into a tense meeting or a stressful situation or a conversation full of emotion, remember, you have a choice. You can add to the noise or you can be the stillness. Choose calm, because calm is contagious. In moments of uncertainty, people don't look for someone who knows all the answers. They look for someone who makes them feel safe. That's what leadership really is. It's not about having the loudest voice or the most impressive title. It's about creating an environment where people can show up, think clearly, and do their best work. And nothing creates that environment faster than a leader who knows how to stay calm. Calm leadership builds trust. Think about the last time you felt overwhelmed or unsure. Maybe it was a challenging work project, a tough life decision, or a sudden piece of bad news. Now, think about who you turned to in that moment. It probably wasn't the person who reacted emotionally or panicked. It was the one who stayed grounded, the one who listened, the one who didn't add to the chaos, but helped you navigate through it. We instinctively trust people who are calm, not because they have everything figured out, but because their presence reassures us that we'll figure it out together. When a leader is calm, it sends a very clear signal: I'm not going to fall apart, and I won't let you fall apart either. That kind of presence builds psychological safety. It makes people feel like it's okay to speak up, to take risks, to make mistakes. And when people feel safe, they bring their full selves to the table. That's when teams thrive. That's when creativity happens. That's when people stop playing defense and start playing to win. But the opposite is also true. When a leader is reactive, emotional, or unpredictable, it chips away at trust. People stop asking questions. They second guess themselves. They hide problems instead of solving them. Why? Because they're afraid, not necessarily of the leader themselves, but of the emotional volatility that comes with them. That's why calm leadership isn't just a nice to have. It's a foundation. And it's not about pretending everything is fine when it isn't. It's not about being emotionless or distant. True calm doesn't deny reality. It holds space for it. It says, yes, this is hard. Yes, this is uncertain, but we're not going to let fear dictate our choices. Calm leaders think before they speak. They listen more than they react. They don't jump to conclusions or pass blame. And when they don't know something, they say so honestly. Because calm also means being confident enough to admit what you don't know. That kind of honesty builds even more trust. The good news: calm leadership can be learned. It's not some rare gift. It's a discipline, a mindset, a habit. It starts by learning how to regulate your own emotions, by recognizing the triggers that knock you off balance and creating space before you respond. It's about being the thermostat, not the thermometer. Setting the emotional tone, not just reacting to it. Over time, that consistency becomes your character, and people will feel it. They'll start to come to you, not just for answers, but for clarity, for reassurance, for guidance. Because in a world full of noise, calm leadership stands out. And here's the best part: it creates a ripple effect. When leaders are calm, their teams become calmer, their culture becomes healthier, performance improves, communication deepens, trust grows. It doesn't take grand speeches or dramatic gestures. It takes presence, patience, practice. There's a common misconception about calm people, that they're passive, indifferent, or somehow disengaged, that being calm means standing still while life races ahead. But the truth is, calm doesn't mean doing nothing. Calm isn't the absence of action, it's the presence of clarity before action. In fact, some of the most decisive, impactful people in the world are also the calmest. Why? Because they don't waste energy on panic. They don't confuse movement with progress. They pause, assess, and then move forward with purpose. That pause, the space between stimulus and response, is not hesitation, it's wisdom. We live in a world that rewards speed, fast answers, fast decisions, fast reactions. But speed without clarity often leads to mistakes. It leads to conversations we wish we hadn't started, decisions we wish we could take back, and reactions that burn bridges rather than build them. Calm gives us the space to see what's actually happening, not just what we feel is happening in the moment. And this matters, especially when we're under pressure. When things go wrong, the natural instinct is to do something, anything. We feel a kind of internal chaos and think action will fix it, but action without clarity often just amplifies the chaos. You may get busier, but not better. You may solve one thing only to create 5 more problems. True effectiveness begins with calm, not to delay action, but to guide it. Calm allows you to ask better questions, to look at the situation from multiple angles, to listen, truly listen before you speak. It's what helps leaders make thoughtful decisions when others are reacting emotionally. It's what allows someone in crisis to focus on what actually matters rather than what's screaming the loudest for attention. And this doesn't just apply to big dramatic moments, it applies to everyday life. Someone says something hurtful, you feel tension rising. Without calm, you might respond with anger or defensiveness. But if you take a breath, create a little distance from the emotion, you get clarity. Maybe what they said wasn't about you. Maybe what they meant is different from how you heard it. That clarity changes everything. Or maybe you're facing a challenge that feels overwhelming, too many tasks, not enough time. In a state of panic, you try to do everything at once and end up doing none of it well. But if you stay calm, even for a moment, you can prioritize, you can focus, you can act. Not out of stress, but out of strategy. That's the power of calm. It doesn't rob you of momentum, it refines it. It doesn't weaken your response, it strengthens your precision. Calm is the difference between reacting and responding. It's not about being slow, it's about being smart. The most effective people aren't those who run headfirst into every problem. They're the ones who stand still just long enough to understand the landscape so that when they move with intention.